Okay, so in the last video we went over the structure of a React app, all of the files in the folders here, and in this video we're going to start creating our own file here. So like I mentioned in the last video, the main folder is the src folder. That's where our actual files are. These are the files you see in your browser. And let me close this. The main.jsx file here is where our app starts from. And in this main file, it mounts app. So if I open app.jsx here, which that's what app is up here. It's importing app from that file, app.jsx. And it's mounting it right here. So if I open app.jsx here, we verified in the last video that this is what's showing in the browser. And I'm going to delete everything in here and show you how to recreate a file like this from scratch, because this is the default template for any React app. So I'm going to delete all of this. Okay, and actually let's delete this file altogether. So I'm going to delete app.jsx, delete. And I'm also going to delete the two CSS files in here because we don't need them right now. So right now we just have the source folder with main.jsx inside of it. So I'm going to open that up first because up here, remember, we're importing app and we just deleted that file, so we need to get rid of this or it will fail. And we also need to get rid of this import for index.css. And then let's remove app from down here. Actually, let's leave it there for now. We'll create our file first and we'll come back and replace it. So I'll save this and we'll close main.jsx for now. So inside of the source folder here, I'm going to right click on source here and select new file. And we can name this whatever we want. So I'm going to say home.jsx. And I'll hit enter there. Now to create the layout, the base, like the template that we need to start creating our React app, what we need to do is at the top here we do all our imports, but for right now we're not importing anything. And then below that we need to do function. We give our function a name, for example home here, and notice here that this home is in capital letters. So where is it? Our file name here is in lowercase letters, but our function name always needs to start with an uppercase letter. And actually, if you don't start this with the uppercase letter, when you import this into the main file here and try to mount it as your page, it won't work. You need this to start with the uppercase letter. So I'm calling this home. It takes no parameters. And now we're putting our brackets here, our curly braces. And then at the bottom below that ending curly brace, we need to put default or export, default, and then the name of the function we just created, your home. Okay, so once you have this skeleton here, we can begin writing our code in here. So I'm just going to say here return, and we use normal brackets here. And I'll make some space there. And now we need to surround our what we're returning in one main HTML tag. So for me, I'm just going to use a div here. And the reason why we do this is because we're using the return statement here. We can't have two things inside of this bracket here. So everything that you put in here needs to be enclosed in one HTML tag. In other words, you can't do this. If you notice now, it's giving us an error because we have two things in here. So we have one main HTML tag here. We're using a div. And inside of it, I'm just going to put an h1 and I'm going to print hello from home. And I'm going to save this. And now let's go back into main.jsx here. Before you do any of this, make sure your folder structure here is correct. That home file is inside the source folder. If you accidentally created the home file inside a different folder or just laying loose in the project, you need to move it into the source folder here. So okay, let's go back into main here, and on the imports here at the top, I'm going to press enter and import a new file here. We're going to import home from home, and notice here it's the capital H, but we named our file with the lowercase h. So what it's actually importing here is this thing that we exported from inside the file. You see it starts with an uppercase H here. And when you export something, it means that you can import it from a different file. So here in the home file, we're exporting this function which returns some HTML. And then we're exporting it as home here. And then in the main file, we're importing that same home thing here. And here we need to say from and where we're importing it from, but your autocorrect should like put that in for you. And then here where we're mounting app, let's remove app from there and we instead put home. Okay, so I'm actually just going to delete this first. Whatever you import up here, you can use it as a tag down here if you imported it from another JSX file. So we just open our tag, we put home, and then we close our tag on this side. And that's how you import something from a different file. So this is the basic skeleton of the React file. And I'm just going to hit terminal up here because I closed the terminal we had opened in the last video. And I'll select new terminal here. And once this loads, I'm going to type npm run dev, same as we did in the last video to start up our project. And now it gives us this link down here. So I'm going to hold down Control on my keyboard and click on that link. And yeah, we can see that this worked correctly. It says hello from home here. So we've successfully created our own file and we imported it into the main page here. And then we mounted it right here. And you can do this for as many files as you want. You can even mount files into other files. So I can create a third file here and mount it inside of home here. And now I'm just going to show you some, let me close this first. I'm going to press Ctrl C in the terminal. And I'll close it up here with the trash can icon. I'm going to show you an easy way to get this template out. So I'm going to delete all of this, and here I'm going to head into extensions. Now I'm going to scroll down in my extensions, and here you can see ES7. It's this extension here, ES7 plus. I accidentally clicked on something there. ES7 plus React/Redux/React native snippets. You want to search for this extension and install it. And I think there's another one down here also. Let me just scroll down. Yeah, it's React Native Tools, but that's for when we're building Android apps. So for right now, you don't need to worry about React Native Tools down here. Just get the ES7 plus React/Redux/React Native snippets. It's a long thing here. Just search it out and you should find it. And once you have that installed, I'm going to close this. In our home file here, we just need to type RAFCE, and you can see this little snippet here pops up. If I select that, you can see it brings in the template automatically for us. And the name here is the same name as the file, so it names our function the same thing as the file up here. Now you may be confused here because it says const, not function. It's basically the same thing as a function, we're just using an arrow function here. So let me quickly go over arrow functions as well for those who are confused. Also, when you use RAFCE, it will bring in this import React from React. You actually don't need that, so you can get rid of it and just use this as your base template. Now, for those of you who are confused with the arrow functions, I'm just going to show you how it works now. So let's delete this. And just before I delete it, notice this home here is the same as our file name, and we named our file with a lowercase h. And as I mentioned before, if you name your function with a lowercase letter here, the import will actually fail. It won't allow you to do that. It needs to start with an uppercase. So if you are using that RAFCE to create this template, make sure you change this to an uppercase, and then change it as well down here to match what you typed up here. So now let's look at arrow functions, and I'll explain how this works. So when we create a function, what we're doing is we're using this keyword function. We give it a name like myfunc, and we use our brackets here, and then we use our curly braces here, and the function goes in between here. So this is our code. When we want to use an arrow function, so we don't want to go through the effort of typing all of this out, what we do is we create a variable like const, and we give it a name. For example, myfunc2. I know I'm good at naming things. And then we set it equal to our normal brackets here. And then we use an equals to and a greater than sign. And then we use our curly brackets here. Now notice what this looks like right here. We have normal brackets and then curly brackets. So this is a shorthand way of saying function, and it's a way to store it inside of a variable like this. So it's just a quicker way of creating a function. Now this may look even longer than what we typed up here, but the reason why some people like to do it this way, including myself, is because sometimes you use a function that takes a function as a parameter, and sometimes I don't want to go and create a whole nother function up there just to pass it as a parameter. So I write one of these anonymous functions as a parameter inside of that function. I hope that makes sense. So here we're basically doing the same thing. This is the brackets where you require things, same as here. And then this is the brackets where our code goes inside of. This is our code. And yeah, this is basically how a anonymous function works, or arrow function. And in that example I was giving you earlier, let's say we had a function here, it's called func, and it actually takes a function as a parameter here. Well, if we were doing this the old way, we'd have to go up here, create that function, for example, function my name, whatever. Yeah, we put some code inside of it, and then we'll have to pass that function name here, my name. But the benefit of using a arrow function is now instead of doing all that, I can just directly create the function in here like this. And you can see then we just put our parameters here, and we put our code in between of these curly braces. So this is just a faster way to do things. Sometimes you don't want to be creating functions all the time. You just want to use a quick anonymous function, especially if you're only going to be using this function once. It's not really useful to create a proper function at the top of the file and then only use it once in the file and never again. There was really no point in creating that function. So it's better to use an anonymous function for stuff like that. So okay, in the next video we're going to be going over hooks. So in React we have something called hooks, and I'll explain more about it in the next video, but for now just go over how you create the templates in React files. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.